The story I am about to tell is full of mystery, betrayal, and unexpected twists of fate. It is a story of adultery, deceit, and bitter payback. It all started with a regular day when I discovered that my wife was cheating on me. It was like a hammer blow to the heart. I felt a mixture of rage, resentment, and frustration. But I was determined not to let it go unpunished. I decided to take revenge, to make her feel the same pain that I had felt. I devised a daring and ruthless plan that robbed her of her future and left her by the wayside. But what secrets did I discover along the way? What dangers and trials awaited me? You'll learn all this and more in this gripping tale of repaying your wife for cheating on you. Welcome to a world of intrigue and drama, where the boundaries of revenge and justice blur. Are you ready to walk this journey with me? Then let's get started, and here we go. Hi, everyone, and I apologize for my Russian. I don't use it much in writing. I was born back in the USSR. My parents, in the murky waters of the 90s, were very successful in catching fish in the form of dollars. And although the situation in the country was profitable, my parents did not like the prospects and sent me to study in the country of dwarfs. After finishing school, then university and later graduate school in Switzerland, I received first a residence permit and then citizenship. Having received a good education, I was invited to work in a serious bank. All this time, I regularly went home to my parents. The benefits of airplanes were not far away, and I could afford it, of course. On one visit, I turned my attention to my neighbor. She always lived next door, but was always a snot-nosed girl, and here she became a beauty. In short, I fell in love. At 19, she was no longer a girl, but I was no longer a boy. In general, I did not bother, and flew back and forth over half of Europe. About 6 months later, she called me in tears and told me she was pregnant and was going to have an abortion. Like a real dear, I stopped her, flew home, took her and dragged her to Switzerland to register. True, to live in the land of gnomes wife did not want, or rather wanted, but inconstantly, explaining this departure for his parents and his beloved grandmother. And again, I, like a real dear, was ready for anything. So we flew back and forth, spending more time in Russia than in Switzerland. Fortunately, I mostly worked remotely and handled investment accounts for Russians. So my superiors approved of my movements, as it kept me closer to my clients. However, I brought my wife to give birth in the country of dwarfs. So my daughter received Swiss citizenship by her father, that is, by me and my place of birth. We lived that way for 4 years, as it seemed to me, in love and happiness. I pampered my girls, especially my daughter, who grew up to be a real daddy's little girl. My wife did not like my daughter. She did not even want to feed her, in order to save her breasts. But I did not care about that. I was doing everything myself, and if I could, I would breastfeed. Anyway, for 4 years all was well, and 3 days after her 4th birthday, she didn't come home. I didn't come the next day. She didn't come until the 3rd, when I had already charged the cops to look for her. She came in and said we were getting a divorce. And we were getting divorced because she never loved me. She had always loved somebody else. But that guy was framed and locked up, and she was pregnant. She didn't want to kill the baby from the guy she loved, so she married me. And now that guy is out, and she and her daughter will live happily ever after with him. After saying this, she shoved a pre-made DNA test under my nose, showing that, alas, I was not the father of the child. And to this, she added a summons to court to deprive me of paternity. All in all, it felt like I had been hit in both of my heads with a sledgehammer. While I was in a state of utter fucking astonishment, she grabbed my crying daughter and with the words "let's go to daddy," dragged her away. Then there was a court to deprive me of my paternal rights, at which to her surprise I declared, and lied that I knew that the child was not mine and the father was recorded with my consent. And under the law of the Russian Federation, that makes me the father, and to deprive me of paternal rights requires more serious grounds. My lawyer backed me up, and in the meantime my wife said that they wanted child support. At the same time, my daughter was not given to me. Yes, while all this was dragging on, my mother tearfully admitted to me that she suspected that the child was not mine. She said that I had been seriously ill with scurvy as a child, and even back then, doctors warned me that I almost certainly would not have children. In general, after a week of torture, early in the morning, I came to the kindergarten to talk to the principal. Friends, subscribe to the channel under this clip. His subscription you motivate me to write interesting stories and more, and help the channel in development. And now back to the story. She told me that according to her mother's, she could not give me a child, but she said that the child changed a lot, became unsociable, cried a lot, and obviously came to the kindergarten hungry. Then I told her I had international written permission to take the child out of the daycare. And in response to her surprise, I pulled out of my pocket a small, but still a wad of evergreen American rubles. Looking at her hesitation, he reported some more. The principal, after a quick glance at the wad of American 100 notes, brought my daughter, who immediately threw herself at my neck and reminded me that my mother usually comes for her by 6, because the girl is at after-school care. After saying thank you very much, I took my daughter and rushed with her to the airport. Fortunately, my wife didn't tape my daughter with her documents when she left. My daughter clung to me the entire way and asked, "Won't you give me away, Vitya?" He won't hit me anymore, and told me that he hit her with a pillow. I wanted to turn around and rip his head off, but my father, who was driving, said he would deal with it himself. At the airport, I just bought 2 tickets for the next flight overseas. I didn't care where. I needed a change of jurisdiction. In short, 2 citizens, or rather citizens of Switzerland, took 12 hours to get to the country of the dwarfs. The next day, I asked an audience with the head of my department at the bank and, honestly, as it were, told him the situation, saying that if it could damage the bank's reputation, I was willing to quit. He replied that no, so I would sit back and keep my head down. A few more hours later, I was brought before 3 people, the head banker of our institution, the head lawyer, and the psychologist. At their request, I repeated the whole story, saying that according to my daughter, she had been beaten and tortured. Then they told me to get out and wait for the verdict. Then they sent for my daughter, and the psychologist talked to her. Then they called me in and told me not to worry, for such a story, with a limited eye, oddly enough, would benefit the bank, and that it would be handled by a lawyer, whose card was handed to me. A few days later, I received a summons to court, where I appeared with the same lawyer. There I was announced that I was charged with kidnapping a child, to which my lawyer replied that I was a Swiss citizen, had taken my daughter, a Swiss citizen by birth, out of Russia, whom her mother had tricked into taking to her lover in the wilds of Siberia, and would not let her back to Switzerland, and that I had filed for divorce because of my wife's infidelity. In general, the judge quickly made a decision that a citizen of Switzerland, I mean my daughter, will live with her father, and at the age of 24, she will decide whether to move to Siberia. At the same time, she can see her mother as often as she wants, but only in the country and under the supervision of third parties. What now? My daughter lives with me. She already goes to school and comes with me on vacations to warmer climes. My ex was left with nothing, for, according to the contract, my house in Switzerland, mine, and it has nothing to do. Also, as well as to my bank account, for, the same marriage contract in Switzerland love, and from the changers do not love. The apartment in that Russian city where we lived was bought in my father's name, as well as the cars. I disconnected the Swiss cards with a single phone call, and the Russian ones proved to be simply useless, for money was transferred to those accounts from Switzerland as needed, and the need disappeared. According to the father, the love of his life kicked her out as soon as he realized that he could not get anything from the Swiss sucker, and the only leverage in the form of a child fled. In general, he beat her and kicked her out, announcing that he would not forgive her for the fact that she slept with who knows with whom, me, for 4 years. My father did not give her the jewelry. He said that it was all granddaughters. The lover really came to my father, tried to scare him and knock out this very jewelry, but the old retired pensioner suddenly became a serious tycoon of the dashing 90s. So the lover and his cronies ran away, losing their slippers. The former problems with Russian justice were helped by my Russian clients, so the Russian court also left the child with me, yes, and the mother's right to communication. She, of course, tried to argue on the grounds that she could not fly to Switzerland every other weekend. The judge explained to her that that was her problem. I saw her several times when I went to visit my parents. She cried, saying that it was a mental breakdown, that she loved only me, and that life without me was no fun for her. I listened, of course, listened politely, and then said that I understand that life with me in a cabin in the mountains and travel around the world is much nicer than working 12 hours at the cash register at the local store. But she made her choice, and she has to live with him. That is, with him it is a choice, but without me and my daughter, and I are sure to live without her somehow. Dear listeners, please share your opinions in the comments. What do you think? Did the main character do the right thing, that he took such noble revenge on his ex and his cheating wife? Or maybe for the sake of the baby, he should have given her more of a chance to see her. Or should he? Now on to the second story. In the world of cheating and betrayal, there are stories that make us think about how difficult it is to know the true face of someone we thought was close to us. And here is one such story that opens our eyes to the unpredictable nature of infidelity. It is the story of a wife who suddenly and ruthlessly cheats on her husband, and not with someone random, but with his best friend. But the most shocking thing about this story is not only that she has found solace in the arms of her lover, but also that this lover gropes her 3 times a day, while her husband is unable to give her such pleasure. So what causes a wife to turn to another man in search of true passion and sexual satisfaction? How does this infidelity affect the dynamics of family life and the relationship between husband, wife, and friend? Dive into this shocking story of how a wife cheats and what lurks behind her quest for a more passionate and fulfilling life. Are you ready to uncover the truth? Then let's begin a journey into a world of mystery and intrigue where nothing is what it seems at first glance. So, about everything in order. My name is Aliona. I am 38, my husband is 40. Married for 13 years, there is a wonderful daughter, she is 12. I love her very much, and my husband does not dote on her. I love my husband and believe that we have a strong family, because we got married for love. Although I had many suitors before him, and I have been sexually active since I was 16, and he knows a lot of things. And of course he does not know about some things. I did not tell him everything. In terms of spousal duty, everything seems to be fine. But to be honest, my husband is not a titan in this. But I love him, and I partially close my eyes to it. Over the years, of course, there were small trips to the left, but nothing more serious, a couple of hookups at corporate events and after them. My husband, of course, does not know anything. Everything was very carefully. He never cheated on me, of course. Although corporate, so to speak, Andrews I do not consider treason. My husband is tall, handsome, and smart. He teaches at the institute. He is a historian by training. I, on the other hand, am a spectacular brunette who loves sports, fitness, and swimming. But now to the problem. I work for an insurance company, a friendly, close-knit team. And then 2 years ago, a new employee came in. Nothing impressive. He was 1 meter tall, half a head shorter than me, overweight, fat, and not athletic. We even joked about it all the time. But it was like he didn't notice it, you know. And he did everything with the look of a real match. Then he would make a joke. And then he would tell a foul-mouthed joke in front of the girls. Yeah, like that. And then came December. My husband leaves on business trip to the department until January 29. And on January 26 our friendly staff, corporate party. All dressed up, and our new employee in Voladia dressed casual, as if he had come to work. And so it turns out that he was sitting next to me, and it was in a restaurant. And he suddenly began to woo me so cleverly that in half an hour, I forgot the wrinkled jacket, belly, and the growth of a sitting dog. He turned out to be a surprising dancer, and in general, the soul of the company. We went for a long walk until 5 in the morning. I left my daughter at her parents'. And by this time, we were pretty drunk. And then Volodya suddenly said, "I want you." In another setting, he would have at best received a slap from me, but the champagne worked a miracle, I thought. Why not? It's silly, isn't it? For some reason, we went to my place. And then it turned out that Volodya was as hairy as a gorilla, and that turned me on. My husband, a refined person and somewhat shy, by the way, and here's a mini King Kong, was handling me much better than my husband, and with foul language and vulgar jokes. It made me feel so crazy, it was unbelievable. I was a respectable mother and wife, and here I was being treated like a girl from the streets. I woke up at 12 p.m. On the phone, 5 missed calls from my daughter. I promised her to go to the movies that day. How bad was it for me? Words can't tell. Volodya left a note. It's okay, I liked it. So, let's get it over with and fly over to this address at 11 p.m. and the phone number there. I was so disgusted that words can't express it. I called my parents and asked them to pick up my daughter from school and leave her with them for a few days. I cried for 2 hours, slowly came to my senses, cleaned up the apartment. I began to go over the events of the previous day and night, and suddenly I realized that I was on fire again. Last night had given me something that, as it turns out, I had been deprived of for the past 13 years. My husband had given me everything. As it turned out, I needed other things as well, and I needed them badly, so I had no energy to endure. I, of course, called Volodya and came to see him. Everything repeated itself, the drinking. Now I was drinking vodka and all the other delights. In the morning of the 28th, I called my boss and informally asked him to excuse me for a week at his expense. I simply had no strength to go to work and to see the eyes of the employees for the time being. On the 29th, my husband arrived. I cooked a delicious dinner, opened the cognac, and it was as if everything was back to normal. My husband was surprised by my vacation. We have a sliding schedule, and we have almost no New Year's holidays. On New Year's Eve, I did my best to be a good wife and a wonderful mother. Everything seemed fine, but on January the 5th, I was all over the place. After lying out loud about the problems of his girlfriend, I went to Volodya all night. After that night, all hell broke loose. I could not think about anything but bed with this man. My beloved husband had ceased to excite me at all in this respect, and there was nothing I could do about it. Fortunately, for the last 5 years, we have been having it no more than once a month. My husband is a bit cold, and his science is busy, so he did not notice anything much. And I'm afraid to just look my daughter in the eye. She already understands everything, it seems. All my thoughts are about Volodya. And it seems that the whole office already knows about our relationship, but fortunately, all the quiet so far. Life, it would seem, goes on as usual. The whole family goes on vacation, my husband, and I have quite good salaries. We organize trips to nature with friends, the gym, and the pool, my second home. But it's all a mirage. I think about it all the time with Volodya. We do it 3 to 4 times a week, for a year and a half now. At his house, at my place, even the bathroom at work on my lunch break. Yeah, that's how bad I am. Most importantly, I do not even like Volodya, and what can there like? He is not very educated, untidy, his one room is a mess and filth. He is a terrible boor and vulgar, and hairy as an orangutan. He does not swear, but speak foul language, and disgusting. Anyway, but I want him badly every day, every hour. I've tried to distract myself. I've had a couple of affairs, but it's not the same. It's all very conventional. The worst thing is that I'm not the only one. He has a couple of girlfriends from the working areas. From the bottom of society, so to speak, he is good with them. And I'm dying for it when I imagine him with someone else. And he once told me, a bastard, look, but you're old. Yeah, a couple of years in a trash can. I cried all day afterwards. I do not know what to do. I love my husband, my daughter madly, and leave them, of course, do not plan to, and nowhere. Voladia does not need me, and he is younger than me by 7 years. If my husband does find out, he will definitely divorce. He told me after the wedding that he would never forgive infidelity, and for nothing, kick me out of the house uniquely. The apartment was his before marriage. He will not give his daughter away, and there is no place to go with her. My parents have a one-room apartment. The 4 of us cannot live there. We must urgently break up these relationships. How to do it, what to do. Maybe go to the site, do not make the gate. Maybe to church, some kind of compulsion. God forbid my husband finds out, ashamed, disgusted, just awful. Help me advice, at least something to advise. Maybe quit my job. Forgive me for a kind of chaos. Literally some kind of adult film turned out, even ridiculous myself, but not to the laughter. I would be grateful for any advice, dear listeners. See you soon.